welcome to our third workshop. I'm so excited to have you all here for this workshop. Our workshop's title is When is the Right Time to Switch Jobs? This is a really awesome topic because we've got an amazing guest speaker for you all tonight. And the reason why this is an awesome topic is because this is probably something you've faced or thought about in your work experience. Maybe it's been something that's been on your mind recently. Maybe it's something that's been on your mind in the past, but it's definitely something that's probably crossed your mind. When is the right time to switch jobs? This could be because your company culture is not valuing you, or maybe you've got a bad situation with your supervisor, or maybe you're just kind of bored. You don't feel like you've got any upward momentum, or for any other reason for why you might want to switch jobs. This is the workshop for you to give you insight as to when actually is the right time to switch jobs. How can you go about identifying when that right time is, and how can you put yourself in the best position so then you are properly leveraging the opportunity at hand. Now, one thing we know is that one of the best ways to go about raising your pay level and your title, your actual status within a company's level, is by switching jobs. It's just a fact. What we've observed in the data is that people are less likely to get promoted by staying at the same company year over year. They are much more likely to get promoted faster by switching jobs. In fact, some of the things we see quite often is people leaving a company, going to a different company, getting some experience, and then coming back at a much elevated role than somebody who stayed at that company that entire time. So it's something to definitely consider and think about, but it is not all about switching jobs, and it is really all about when is the right time to switch jobs, because there are sometimes moves that are diagonal moves, there are sometimes moves that are directly vertical moves, there are sometimes horizontal moves that you believe will help you move up vertically even faster, and sometimes the motivation isn't necessarily to move up faster or to make more money. Sometimes it's to get more balance with your life, or sometimes the motivation is to work on something that is more of a calling to you, something that you really are passionate about. It's not about the money anymore. It's okay, whatever your motivations are. This workshop will really shed light on when the right time is to switch jobs. Now, we're going to cover a few key things that you can do to prepare for your mentor relationship and for how to actually go about preparing for switching jobs. And obviously, we've got an amazing guest speaker for you all this evening. But I wanted to talk a little bit about work orientation. Work orientation, that's that measurement that we've leveraged to help match you with your mentor. And this is something that plays a big role into job changes because we know that, one, your work orientation is fluid. Work orientation is how you view your work. So some people view their work as a job, some people view their work as a career, some people view their work as a calling. If you've logged into your Ambition and Motion dashboard, you'll see that triangle, you'll see where your dot is on the triangle. But it's fluid, meaning that your dot could have changed between January when you took the assessment and right now. And that's, by the way, completely okay. That's completely normal. But what we know is that what motivates you at work will absolutely determine how and when and why you will want to switch jobs. So back to what I was saying earlier, if you're job oriented, that's, by the way, completely okay. It means you're motivated by work-life balance. Your decision to change jobs might be because you're working 80 hours a week and you just can't keep doing it anymore. You got to be home with family. You got things in your life that you want to do more of, and your work is not allowing you to do that. So your motivation is not necessarily more money or a higher status. It could be, hey, I want to work 40 hours a week, or I want to work 30 hours a week, I want to work 20 hours a week. I want to do something that can pay me a little bit of money, allow me to get by, but ultimately allow me to relax and wind down a bit. And that's okay. If you're career oriented, that's where we see a lot of the stereotypical reasons for moving, because it helps you work up the corporate ladder. It helps you get promoted faster. It helps you get a higher pay raise. It helps you learn new skills. Moving jobs is definitely something that's advantageous for someone who's career oriented because it allows you to try new things. But then the key is, how can you be strategic about that? Our guest speaker will help us with that this evening. And then the last part is your calling. So if you're calling oriented, you might want to switch jobs because you're working for this company and it's just not doing it for you. You're like, yeah, it's fine. The impact on the world that we're making is fine, but it's just not calling to your heart and the impact you want to make on the world. And we end up realizing to ourselves, shoot, we've only got a finite amount of days, years, hours on this earth. We might as well be spending it doing something that we're really passionate about, that's really we feel like is making a positive difference. We can always get more money, but we cannot get more time. For us, if you're calling oriented, you might determine, you know what, I am switching because I want to be doing something that's meaningful to me. Then the key is, how can you be strategic and put your priorities on a pedestal to ensure that you are getting what you want out of it. Don't get sidetracked by the things that do not motivate you. It can be easy, let's say if you're calling oriented, to start looking for new jobs because you want to find something that you're more passionate about. And then maybe you get 3 different job offers and you end up making a decision based on the amount of money. That would be crazy, but it happens all the time because ultimately you're making this job switch because you wanted to do something you were more passionate about. Ultimately, if you get, let's say, 3 offers and you're calling oriented, the company, the entity, the organization that is the most impactful to you really should be the one that wins out. At the end of the day, sure, your quantitative metrics in terms of how much money you need to be making should be appeased, but after that, you should be looking at impact if that's something that motivates you. If you're job oriented, what's the type of role that's going to give you the most work-life balance? You might have 3 job offers. One is, asking you to work 50 hours a week. One is asking you to work on Saturdays and Sundays, and one says, you know what, hey, you're going to only work 35 hours a week. You're only going to do that over 3 days, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Thursdays through Sundays are yours. That might be the thing that you want. You might be, I'm cool with working extended hours on 3 days of the week to get a bunch of hours, make money, and then, the rest of it's essentially a weekend. That could be the way that you perceive work. Whatever it is, make sure that what motivates you, what is the most important factor, is the highest and the most highest thing on your pedestal of what is your decision-making process. So that is just the thing that I really want to stress when it comes to when is the right time to switch jobs, making sure that your priorities are aligned with where you want to go. Now, we're about halfway through the mentor program this spring. Hopefully you've met with your mentor. Hopefully you've already met with your mentor twice. I want you to make the most out of this program. Take advantage of it. Meet with your mentor as many times as you possibly can. And hopefully get yourself to where you want to be. Now, one thing that I really want to stress is that if you are not able to get in contact with your mentor, if you're having any issues, please email support@ambition-in-motion.com. We can answer any questions, comments, concerns, or issues you have with your mentor. Or if you've got kudos, if things are going great and amazing, send it to us. We love hearing those stories. I mean, the positive just makes us feel good that we're making a positive impact. It makes us feel really special that we've done something. So I know often, it's, as the term goes, if it bleeds, it leads. We only want to share the things that are negative in our world. Share the positive stuff. It makes us feel better about what we are doing. We love to hear it. So let's jump in. Now, the one thing that we've talked about in previous workshops that I really want to stress, and I stress it every single time, that is strategy, story, and state. Those are the 3 keys to success in this program. And I'll talk about them in reverse order. State is the most important thing. Physically, what is your state? Physically, where are you at? Physically, what is going on in your world? I don't care if you've had a horrible day, if you're stressed out, if your work is frustrating you. I mean, the whole point of this program is that hopefully we can get your work situation to a point where it's not frustrating you. But regardless of it, when you're going into a mentor meeting, what is your state saying about you? If you're coming in with a negative mentality, if you're coming in with a negative state, you're going to give off negative vibes. Then people are not going to want to help you or be around you. But on the flip side, if you get yourself into a positive state, if you're doing power poses every morning, if you're getting yourself up, moving, working around, and just getting yourself overall in a good feeling and a good mood, because your emotions, by the way, your emotions drive your emotions. You can get yourself into an emotionally positive state by moving around and getting your body going, getting your blood pumping. I tell you that's something that I've learned from Tony Robbins. It's an extremely valuable tool. Make sure that you're leveraging it, but your state is so critical. So what I want to do right now is I want to get you into state. You're about to learn some amazing things from our guest speaker this evening. I want to make sure that you are taking the most out of it and retaining as much information as you can. So what I want you to do is I want you to stand up and I want you to shake it out. I want you to shimmy loose. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. On the count of 3, scream at the top of your lungs. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out. Let it loose. Let it go. You got nothing to lose. I don't care who's looking at you weirdly, if you're at work or if you're in an office or if you're at home. I don't care what's going on. You've got nothing to lose, because at the end of the day, it's about how much are you taking from this program. If you're making the most out of this, you've invested yourself in this program. I want you to make the most out of this. So get yourself into a state conducive for being successful. This goes for any scenario you're going into at work, whether that be a mentor meeting, a colleague meeting, a supervisor meeting. Get yourself into state. Do what you need to do to get yourself prepared physically, because you will then be much more likely to be successful. Now, the next key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself for why you are going to be or not to be successful? I want to think about this in a different way. I want to ask you a question. I would love if you could post your comments in the comments section. But what is a feeling that you want other people to feel about you when you meet them? The reason why I ask this is because it helps us and forces us to be intentional about how we want others to feel about us. Because ultimately, if we're intentional intentional about how we want other people to feel about us, we are much more likely to actually convey that feeling in them. If we're thinking to ourselves, man, I would love if people thought I was confident, or I would love if people thought I was knowledgeable, or I would love if people thought I was kind or empathetic, whatever it is, post in the comments section. I'd love to learn what is a feeling that you would love to convey in other people. But what this does, by being intentional about what feeling we are trying to convey in other people, we can now start taking actions and start doing things that help reinforce that feeling in their minds about who we are, what we're doing. If we can be intentional about how we want other people to feel about us, we are much more likely to be successful. That plays directly into that story thing about why we'll be successful. Because sometimes I think it might be easy to perceive, oh, story is just about being confident. Story is just about telling yourself why you're going to be successful. And it is. That's a big part of it. But the other big component to having a good story is understanding every component of how other people interact with you. So you don't want to come in bombastically overconfident and just not being humble. It's about being intentional about how you want other people to feel about you. If you can identify that feeling, post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. That will really help you in terms of having the right story. Now, the last key is your strategy. What are the things you are going to do to best prepare yourself for this circumstance? Now, our workshop tonight is about when is the right time to switch jobs. I'm a big proponent of SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. One thing that I would love for you to do, it's great to start a routine every month. Identify what is the strength of staying in my company, what is the weakness of staying in my company, what are the opportunities of moving to a different company, what is the threat of moving to a different company. Identify that. When the opportunities and the weaknesses are greater than the strengths and the threats, it is time to move. That helps you do a personal audit of where you were, where you are, and where you'd like to be. If you don't do that, it can be difficult to know when is the right time to switch. It can be easy to fall into a trap of just doing the same monotonous work day in and day out. By doing consistent SWOT analyses and by doing it monthly, you're much more likely to have a greater understanding of when the right time is to switch. Now, the last thing that I would love and really implore you to try is to share what you're learning about with somebody else. It could be another person in this program. It could be a friend. It could be a significant other. It could be anybody, a family member, whatever. Because what we've learned is that when people who participate in this program share something that they learned about this program with at least 20 other people, their likelihood of achieving their goals in this program increases incrementally. We hypothesize that a big reason for this is that they're teaching other people these skills that they're learning. And when we know that when you teach somebody else something else, it is much more likely to reinforce in your mind. Maybe it could also be the law of attraction. By sharing with other people the things that you're learning in this program, especially your goals, people are now thinking about you for those outcomes. Maybe they're thinking, you know what, Jane Doe, John Doe would be a perfect fit for this thing, and they're going to introduce you. The point I'm making is that when you share this program and what you're learning with more people, the likelihood that you're going to achieve your goals increases substantially. And also, I mean, for future programs, we're opening up our enrollment for the fall program. If you could encourage other people to participate, we would love to get more people involved, because we know that if you could be an ambassador for this, we are much more likely to make a better impact and a bigger impact on more people. So if you could help encourage more people to enroll in the program, we would love to have that, especially to have your support in that endeavor. So I'm so excited to jump into our guest speaker this evening. We're talking about when is the right time to switch jobs. If you've got any questions about anything at all, any comments, any concerns, any issues with anything, please email us at support@ambition-in-motion.com. I'm so excited for what you all are about to learn this evening. I'm so excited for you to embark on the next half of the Ambition in Motion Mentor program with your mentor. I look forward to seeing what you are all able to accomplish. Let's get going to the next part of this workshop. Hey everybody, welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to dive into our topic of today. This is a very, very fascinating topic because we're right now in this stage of the world where we're hearing this great resignation of everybody resigning. Some people are taking sabbaticals. Some people are transitioning work altogether. Some people are changing companies altogether. There is a lot of transition going on. Really, what we're here to talk about is when is the right time to switch jobs? When is the right time to make that switch? When is the right time to make that pivot in our own personal life? We've got a great guest speaker with us here this evening. We've got Alethia Fowler. Alethia's expertise includes creating and executing annual marketing plans and developing capture strategies. She has a knack for managing large-scale marketing initiatives after 20 years on this career path. She still loves helping people tell their story and win new work. Alethia is currently the marketing director for LHB. Alethia, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Garrett. Happy to help.
Yeah, so let's dive in. So before I know I gave an intro of you, but I would love if you could maybe share a little bit of your story, the career transitions you've made in your life, and what determined that? Was it a corporate decision? Was it your decision? Like, what have your transitions in your career been like, and why did they happen?
Sure. Well, so my career path is not all that dissimilar to others in my industry, meaning that I didn't mean to be here, or I didn't set out to be here at the end. My degree is in international relations, and international relations and French, I thought that I would pursue a career in diplomacy. And the idea was get some working experience before you pursue your master's degree. So I started out working with an international developer, developing critical infrastructure projects in third world countries. Gave me access to international business and some of the diplomacy side as I was entertaining, secretaries of state and other dignitaries. Through my experience there, we teamed with a large architecture engineering firm, and I was sort of introduced to the world of architecture and invited to join that firm after the pursuit, which ended up being sort of a pattern. I was with Ellery Beckett for about a year and decided I really like this field. I'm really into this. I think I'm going to pursue this, but not at this company. I could tell the company culture wasn't right. For me, I was a new grad and newish, and just had a lot of aspirations and wanted to be treated and seen as a professional. And it just wasn't really the culture at that firm. So
real quick, do you mind if I clarify one thing real
yes.
quick? I think, and maybe I might have missed it. Do you mind just recapping? Is this still in foreign diplomacy, or is this now transitioned?
Well, no. So I transitioned to the architecture engineering world.
Okay.
That
why?
firm.
Why did you make that transition?
Sure. Well, okay. So a couple of things. While I was working for that international developer, I started out working in this sort of gray office park in a cubicle space, and we purchased a large mansion in Minneapolis, and it was renovated into office space. Once I moved into that space, I just became aware of how my surroundings had such a big impact on my day-to-day productivity, my moods. It really just introduced the concept of design, impacting lives. So as we teamed with this design firm to pursue or develop a stadium actually in Vietnam, and they invited me to join them, and I was enamored with the idea of working in design and this international company. They had offices in, I think, Seoul and Tokyo at the time, and it was all very glamorous. And so that's how I jumped to design, to AE, and pretty quickly made the decision, like, this is the industry I want to work in. Diplomacy's not going to happen.
So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you went from like, I want to do international diplomacy, perhaps maybe because you like the idea of international travel and just being in different countries and that sort of work, but almost like as you experience the impact the design of a building has on your own, not only productivity, but like work and life satisfaction. Like if you're in a office building that is soul sucking, which by the way, I think this is a very good insight for anybody who's watching this right now. Like that's really good insight to know. Like you may not have even considered twice what the building layout or look does or how that impacts you, but maybe that's something to consider, because I mean, it sounds like that's pretty impactful, and I get it. I mean, if you don't have enough natural light, if you don't have, I don't know, if there are just like some basic amenities that you
that you kind of take for granted in a really well-designed, well naturally lit environment, and then you don't have it in a new one, I could totally see how you could be like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. But it's cool that that sparked this drive, this desire to get into the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. AEC, by the way.
Yes. So, once I was all in, but knew that LRB wasn't the place for me. And just through my network, met a marketer at another company, at a competitor, made it known that I was open to a change and was invited to join another firm. I was there for about 4 years, working with a fantastic leader. This was one of my favorite companies that I've worked for, and I've worked for several. But ultimately, they were a larger firm, and all of the sort of growth opportunities, or the advanced positions, had kind of been clawed out by the people that had been with the firm longer, and I was pretty siloed. So I was ripe for poaching after 4 years, and there was another national AE firm.
Wait, can we talk about that for a second? Because I think
Yes.
these like we're skipping, but I'm like, oh geez, that's juicy. So you were in a company, you love the industry, didn't like the culture. So you were like, okay, cultural, not a right fit for me. Now you're in a different company and you hit this wall, you hit a ceiling. You're like, I can't go any higher, but I would like to go higher. So how do you determine when you are willing to risk culture fit for the opportunity to advance higher? Because it sounded like the company where you were hitting the ceiling, you love the leader, you love the culture. It seemed like everything checked those boxes. At what juncture is it like, you know what, like I gotta roll this dice and hope I get another great culture that can allow me to grow up? Like, how do you determine that?
Well, honestly, I did not consider culture as a factor. I didn't realize that was something that I should pay a lot of attention to. Fortunately, I got lucky.
Okay. So was it almost like, I know this is a weird word to say, but like temporary amnesia? Was it like I know 4 years ago I had bad culture, but like I've forgotten what bad culture was like, and like
I thought it was just, really that company.
isolated. Got it. Okay. Cool.
Isolated.
And
Yeah.
by the way, that I think is normal. I think a lot of professionals and young people watching this right now are thinking to themselves like, okay, cool. Um, you know, bad culture is an isolated incident. And, at least in my experience, no, it's not.
Absolutely.
It's a crap.
which I have discovered as my career has developed. So
Yeah.
I was very fortunate that the next firm that I joined also had a fantastic culture, and I would say another exceptional leader. She was very persuasive in getting me to join the firm. Offered a lot of growth opportunity, just introduction to different parts of marketing, more responsibility, just fresh new things for me to discover and develop. And after about 3 years there, the economy tanked, and this company closed their Minneapolis office. And they were very supportive as they laid me off when our industry, the AEC industry, was just bleeding jobs. There was layoffs happening. You'd hear about them at competitors every couple days. So I also was very fortunate then that another firm that we had partnered with, a construction company, heard that I was in the market and called me up immediately. I think it was maybe 2 days after I found out that my job was ending. And I had another position ready for me.
Called you.
They called me.
Wow.
Because I had worked with this team. We had partnered with them for a design build pursuit. I had traveled with this team, coached them for their interview, and gotten to know the people at this other firm. And so they apparently enjoyed that experience and jumped at the chance to hire me, which I'm so grateful that they did, because I spent 7 years with JE Dunn Construction, and it was a fantastic experience.
Did they know, did you know that they were interested in hiring you, or were you totally blindsided?
I was blindsided.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a very pleasant surprise to get that call. And my time with Dunn, it was a great 7 years. I learned a lot. I developed a lot as a professional, and just got to see a different side of the industry. But honestly, when I started, as grateful as I was for that position, I was a little bit, salty about, like, well, now I work in construction. I was pursuing this glamorous career. It didn't take me too long to just be fascinated with the work that they were doing, and really embrace that. But once again, 7 years later, I hit that ceiling. The office that I worked in was part of a larger region. And for me to advance beyond the position I was in, I would need to relocate, which I wasn't willing to do. So I decided to go back to the design industry, which was an excellent learning opportunity. I joined another firm where the culture was not a fit. I enjoyed the work that I did. I enjoyed the team that I had built and developed, but just the overall culture, which really was kind of pushed from the top down, just did not sit right with me. I knew it was time to look for another job when I would spend Sunday evenings practically in tears, feeling sick about having to go into the office the next day. So I was only there for a couple of years, and I moved on again. I thought, well, maybe I've become a construction person. So I went
That's
back
a long time though to be in a bad culture.
Yes. And I guess I should say that after I had been there about a year, I went to my boss, to the CEO, and said, I'm not sure this is fit. I'm trying, and this does not feel right. And
what did the CEO say?
he said, well, give us a chance. We're going to try to solve this.
Huh.
And of course, you can't change a 50-year culture overnight, or even in 1 year.
Yeah.
And I don't think the motivation was necessarily there. I think it was just a bad fit. So I
Do you think the CEO was kind of saying that just to keep you there longer, and it was more like a surface level gesture? Or do you think the CEO actually meant it and attempted to take some rectifying actions to make the culture better?
option A. I think it was to see if I would change my mind. Just keep her here longer. Maybe she'll work through this. Or
And that's not better for you or better for the company either, because nobody, like, we know that when it comes to engagement, like if you're not engaged at work, especially if you're actively disengaged at work, you're much less productive. You're not, like, you would rather have an engaged, potentially less experienced person, but someone who's willing to put in that extra time because they are really digging your culture, than somebody who is got all the experiences in the world, but they're just not vibing with the culture. And by the way, there are some people who probably really enjoyed that culture, right?
Mm-hmm. I assume so. There's many people that have worked there for their entire careers.
Yeah, and for them it works, but it's good to know yourself,
right,
to do that. And I think if you're someone watching this right now, you might be thinking to yourself like, dang, 2 years is a long time.
It felt like an eternity.
I bet.
I finally made the decision. It's funny you mentioned engagement. I attended a program. Someone mentioned the Gallup Employee Engagement Survey and had the questions, and so I took the survey, and I scored highly disengaged, or actively disengaged.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've got to get out of here, because not only is this bad for me, I'm toxic for this environment too.
Yeah, it's better for all parties involved.
All
if you're
parties.
not engaged, get out.
Right.
Get out, move. And it's better for the company. I know they're going to be crappy. They may even turn around and offer you more money. It's not changing the culture. Get out, move. You'd be better off taking less money in a culture where you're more engaged, because that's 104 Sunday night crying nights.
Right.
104. That's a
104.
lot of
It's a lot.
Sunday crying nights.
Right. Sundays, there's not enough days in the week to give one to crying. So I chose to join another construction firm, who really, during the interview process, I connected really well with the president who I reported to. They spoke very highly of their culture and what they wanted to do to build this marketing program. And I was very, very excited to be a part of it. Shortly after joining, I think I was there about 5 months when the ownership fired the president, who had been my boss. And I was
Why was he fired?
placed, we'll say philosophical differences. I think he had some personal friction with one of the owners.
But he was performing.
He was, he had been performing very well, and then he'd had a rough year. So
There's a lack of patience if you've got beef.
yes,
with an owner.
absolutely. And so I then reported to this other owner that had bad blood with my former boss. But he was a very, very nice man, who was a pipe fitter by training, and I just really did not understand why I was there. Why had this person that he really had no confidence in, why had this person hired me? What was I there to do? And I toughed it out for some time. I after maybe another year, I decided to look for another position, and was very, very close with another organization. And then the pandemic shut everything down. This business received a PPP loan. So I had some sense of job security, because I know there was some maintaining staff for loan forgiveness. Ultimately, when that deadline was expired, I was laid off, I think maybe 2 weeks later. I was very angry the day of, because I couldn't believe that I was being let go. And the next day was so very happy that I could focus my energies on finding the right fit without feeling like I was betraying this other, the company where I was working. I think about some companies don't want, if they find out that you're looking for another job, they might dismiss you. One of the toxic environment I left actually had that stated in their employee handbook.
What?
If you're looking for another job, if they find out you're looking for another job, you could be terminated.
That is such an interesting, it's so fascinating, that whole notion. It's tough because I'm also a business owner and I get it, but it's so tough because it's like at one point, like when somebody leaves, you feel like it's like a sense of betrayal. You're like, how could you? But it's like, at the end of the day, if they were leaving, like one thing I do fully understand is when somebody's made that conscious decision to leave, you gotta let that person go, because at the end of the day, they're not happy with where they're at. And unfortunately, it hurts, it stings, because the feelings are not mutual. It's like, you're like, I thought we'd be together forever. And then, it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. But in at least my experiences, anytime that's happened, it's always worked out for the best for all parties involved, because we're both able to find something new, that it's a learning experience into something new that we can now pursue and grow and be better. So yeah.
I guess I mentioned that because I've wired to, as long as I'm on a company's payroll, I am on their team, even if I don't want to be. I'm on their team until I'm not anymore. So it just, I think that, seeing something like that in an employee handbook could be a good sign that this might not be the environment that that you're comfortable in, I guess, if you have values similar to mine.
100%. And not only that, because if you are so insecure about people even looking for alternative opportunities, I mean, you're running a culture of fear. You're not running a culture of growth. Like, do we have a
Right.
scarcity mindset or do we have a growth mindset? And having stuff in the handbook like that is just purely detrimental to the growth of individuals. At the end of the day, I think as business leaders, our job is to help grow not only our
Right.
companies, but the people that we work with, which means letting people go. And we'll often see sometimes some of the best stories are from boomerangs, people who left and came back. But sometimes that's what they needed and the company needed to get to that new level and get to that new point. And it's all growth. I think if you stay at the same organization for forever, naturally, and I mean, I even think this even right now, myself as like a business owner, like naturally, for better or for worse, I'm going to stagnate. I'm going to think like, okay, cool. If you're here, then I can more or less not necessarily take that for granted, but I can think about your career growth and trajectory and progression, but it's really difficult for me to put myself into your shoes of like what your progression could be at a different company, because I don't know what those companies' needs are. I just know what my needs are. And you're right now doing great and within the role that you're pursuing. But I also recognize that there are organizations that have different needs that are maybe on a higher level that you could pursue, gain those opportunities, and you grow and become a better professional and person for that. And that's, I think, a good thing.
Right. I think that it's natural for your career to progress, and not everyone is a forever employee. I hope that my team members feel that they can tell me if it's not a fit, and I'd like to help them find the right fit. Because if it's not a fit for them, then it's not a fit for LHB either.
I'd love to take a moment to ask our audience who's watching this right now a question. How much, like in terms of your experience, how much psychological safety do you have with your manager that you have to have that kind of open and honest dialogue with him or her? Post in the comment section, is it high psychological safety? Is it low psychological safety? Like, do you feel comfortable having an open, candid conversation with your manager about this? And if it's no, that's totally okay. But if it is no, is that okay with you? Like, are you okay with it? Or are you potentially looking for another role? Like, I think post in the comment section. I love to hear about it. I think it's great for other people to share their circumstances and scenarios, because it's great to kind of have that community and that level of just kinship of like, hey, I'm not the only one. This is what somebody else is going through. I think that makes a lot of sense. So in your story up to this point, Alethia, you've shared a lot of really cool insights. You've shared scenarios where you left a company and where the company left you just because of economic scenarios. And you shared both the drive for growth, but also for culture fit. I would love to learn, now that you've kind of culminated all of these experiences, what is your own work personal value system? What are the things that are on your 1, 2, 3 that you need to hit, both right now for where you're at in your life, but where you were maybe 10, 15 years ago? Like, how has that changed over time?
I think that I have always been very career oriented and growth oriented. I'm a curious person, hungry for information, and that hasn't changed. I mentioned that culture wasn't really on my radar, and once it came on radar with this toxic environment where I worked, I don't think I thought about it as deeply as I do now. And of course, I'm in marketing, so I think of corporate values and what is stated on your website and touted in your marketing materials. But really, you have to judge an organization based on the values that you observe in the course of business. And my values are very much about having a positive impact, making the world a better place, and giving back. And there are companies that also have those same values, or there are companies that might state those values, and it can be difficult in the interview process to determine which one they are. If everyone's on their best behavior in an interview, how authentic is it? So I have become just a lot more trepidatious. I did a lot more homework, I think, this last time to double check and make sure there was alignment with my values.
Are you keenly aware of like where you're at? Like, do you know what the next level is for you, for where you would like to be?
Well, so I know what the natural progression would be, and it would be to the chief marketing officer, which doesn't exist at our company yet, although marketing director didn't exist before I joined either. And that's intriguing to me, but it's also been suggested that maybe that's not it. Maybe you want to be in, well, this was said by my current manager, maybe you want my position. He's the chief administrative officer. So he's in charge of all the facilities and the admin and legal staff and marketing and HR. So it's given me an opportunity to consider I could do something more broad than just the marketing that I've been focused on for so long.
Got it. So you're in a position where you are not necessarily keen or wed to the idea of just going straight up in marketing. You're saying, hey, I could go this direction and do something new, but also moving up, but into a more broader role of the organization. Does your boss know that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I have a very open conversational relationship with my boss. We have bi-weekly check-ins to maintain that.
How do you broach that subject? I'm just thinking, like, for anybody
He
who's watching,
broaches it.
okay, he broaches it. So
Yeah.
interesting. He broaches that. If I'm somebody watching this right now and I'm like, okay, my boss does not broach this stuff with me, how can I, as the direct report, broach this with my boss in a respectful, effective way?
Right. So I have always been just the frankest of people. As I went to my former CEO and said, this isn't a fit, I've also gone to other supervisors over the year. In fact, at HGA, I said, I love this company. I want to do more. What's next for me? What can I do to bring more value here? And I think that you can represent your needs and your goals and your aspirations authentically, while also positioning them within, my needs can be in alignment with the company's goals too. And how can we join these two together to create something great?
That's great. I love that. What if you end up determining that your goals are not in alignment with your organization's goals? Like their goals for you. Like, let's say you have the conversation and they share it with you and you share with them, and then you're like, whoa, like, hey ho, this is not you're going this way, I'm going this way. It's, by the way, totally cool, but like, what do I do about it?
So I actually haven't encountered that. I was given sort of it takes time. There could be something that will open. I'm asking you to be patient, that kind of sort of explanation. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, I'll give it time. But then
How much time? Is there specifics around the time?
Right. I don't think there's a specific amount of time. And that's why I mentioned I was ripe for poaching. So it was actually the second job offer that I accepted. There was another firm that offered me a position and it didn't feel right. And so I didn't go. I did know that it needed to be the right move.
Have you ever been in a scenario where you received an offer from another company and you went to your current company and said, hey, I'm going to put in my 2 weeks. And then they came back and said, hey, like, don't do that. Here's more money. Like, please stay. Have you ever had a scenario like that?
I have, and that did happen earlier in my career, and I stayed a little longer, and it never works. I mean, it's in all of the manager training that I've received since, the guidance is if someone wants to leave, they're going to leave, and more money is a band-aid. It's a temporary solution, that their reasons for wanting to leave will resurface.
That's a good point. No, I like that.
Although it depends on, what motivates you. If you are someone that is very motivated by money, maybe that would keep you.
Or I've even seen this where you're not actually motivated by money, but you're fearful of what not having money will do to your personal life.
Absolutely.
I've seen that. One of my good friends and former next door neighbor, he has a job he hates. But same thing happened. He's like, hey, I got an offer from another company. They offered him more money to stay. And so he still is there. He's been there for years, but he doesn't like it, but he doesn't leave because he lacks confidence in his own skills and abilities to be effective in another organization. And it's frustrating to hear that, but I mean, yeah, I recognize that that's sometimes something that people have and they face. So is there a professional way to quit a job or to leave a job?
Yes, absolutely. I probably don't need to mention the giving appropriate notice. It's usually spelled out in the employee handbook. But I think that the key is, no matter what the circumstances are of your departure, find something positive to say about your experience there. Because even the worst experience is a learning experience. Find something positive to say.
I love that. That's great. Great advice. I've interviewed many candidates who were like, oh, my last employer, they were total idiots. They had their heads up their butts, blah, blah, blah. You're like, man, if I hire you, what are you going to be saying about me? Like, what if like the worst thing you could possibly do is speak negatively about anybody? I have an advisor who advises me in sales, and he says, anytime anybody brings up a competitor, never speak anything negative about your competitor, ever, never even utter a negative word, only positive things. Just, perhaps ways that you're different, but never in a negative light. It says a lot more about your character if you speak negatively about somebody else than it does, or an organization for that matter, than any of the contents of what you're saying.
Absolutely. I would second that. Never burn a bridge. And look at the silver lining. You must have learned something from the experience. You really do need to find the positive element.
So I would love to ask the audience another question. If you were to switch jobs right now, what would be the thing that you would want to have in this new role that would make it worth switching? And then the follow-on question to that I'd also love to see in the comment section is, what is holding you back from starting? What is holding you back from getting that process going? Because I think a lot of people, whether that be fear, or actually almost always it's fear. Let's put it real. Like the reason why we stay in place that we don't want to be is fear. What are you afraid of? Post in the comment section. I know, by the way, it's difficult to like get that off your chest and like put it down. But I think by doing it with this safe group and this community, I think it's a really powerful thing, because it shows us that, one, we're not the only ones, and two, like by putting it out to the ether, we're able to recognize how ridiculous that is. Like fear is the thing that holds us back from getting what we want. By shouting it out to the world, it allows us to acknowledge that we have the fear, but by acknowledging it, we can also overcome it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Alethia? Just this idea of just putting out the fears, just putting it out there, being real with yourself.
Be real about it. I think that vulnerability tends to generate trust. If you can become comfortable being a little bit vulnerable, it helps you to connect to others because everyone has their fears. And when it comes to something like changing jobs, yes, it can be a scary transition. But a lot of times you just need to sort of play out those fears. Okay, so what if this happens? What's the very worst outcome of that? And what does that mean? I mean, it's generally I can resolve those fears by just playing out the natural logical sequence and saying, oh, okay, that's not as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that. Well, cool. Alethia, your story has been powerful. I feel like there are so many nuggets and golden pieces of wisdom throughout your story. I feel like we have dove into so many different topics and subjects, whether it be culture, compensation, opportunities for growth. What are any just final notes, any final tips, any final insights for our audience just on how to know when the right time is to switch jobs and what we can do about it to be effective in that transition?
I think for me, the two big things, well, okay, I'm going to say three. The three big things when it's time to leave a job, I can tell that by I don't have the right manager to bring out my best performance. I don't have opportunities to use my skills or grow, or I don't have an alignment between my personal values and this company's values. I would caution anyone from leaving a job because they have a coworker they really, really don't like, because there are difficult people in every company, and that is not a reason to leave. I think it's not a decision to be taken lightly, but I don't think it's something to fear either. That said, I have made enough changes in my career, and they were very necessary for me to find my path and find my place. Now that I have found my place, I hope I don't have to make any more career changes.
That's great. I love that. And one thing that's implicit within all of your stories is just the power of doing good work and making positive relationships, because people see that, people observe that. And in your scenario, you've had multiple times where companies reach out to you the moment you became unemployed to give you opportunities. I'm not saying that's going to happen with everybody, but shoot, it's a testament to the power of your ability to do your job well and communicate. And kudos to you. That's amazing, Alethia. That's super cool.
Thank you.
So Alethia, this has been great. This has been awesome guidance. This has been a really great workshop. The final question I have for you is, how can our audience learn more about you and your work? Are you okay with them connecting with you on LinkedIn? How can they reach out to you and connect?
Certainly, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm also, my contact information, or at least a vehicle to contact me via email, is available on my company's website at lhbcorp.com under our people. And I would be happy to share nuggets if there's anything I can do to sort of pay it forward and help others find their path. I would be thrilled.
Awesome. Well, Alethia, you were amazing. Thank you for being here. Everybody in our audience, thank you all for being here. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. See you at our next workshop. See you, everybody.